Okay.
But so go ahead. We were talking about some spiritual stuff here.
Yeah,
Outtakes.
Greg, yeah, now take. When I was listening to your videos, I would catch this little snippet of your spiritual life. And I heard you being reserved with that, at least maybe in years gone by or whatever. And I was like, I want more of that because I feel that I just feel like you are so connected to what, as you say, what designed this. And I'm all about, if there's a Bible, I think it's the body. I think it's nature.
Yes. We'll talk about that in a second. Go ahead.
Okay. So what is that?
Oh, basically, it's a
Oh,
funny, but I didn't want to interrupt you. Did you want to keep going and then I'll show you this?
I could talk a lot, but I feel that the information that's coming through you and the vibration that you are resonating with and are able to impart, it's almost like because you're so pure. You love the word. Because you're so pure, it's like a pure conduit. It's the proverbial hollow bone. It's coming through you and you love it, and it's so nourishing. It's so exciting for me to know that you're getting these visions, as you said earlier. You're getting these downloads. And I know that that's how God works. God, the universe, source, I don't care what word. It's like we're made to be receivers for everything that's spiritual. And we're made to be participants and working with that. And I think the reason we're in a body is so important. I don't think the body is just something that's not to be revered and venerated. And I want to start to live my life more in accord with that, for sure.
Oh, absolutely. I will. I mean, maybe we can talk more about that at some point, even right now, a little bit. But yeah, the spiritual aspect and a lot of what you were saying is actually correct, in my opinion. And I came to Japan for that very reason, more than anything. I mean, yes, there's medical data. The Japanese are doing amazing things. They're very interesting people, and what's the word I'm looking for? Trying to think of the right word. Their standards
Yeah.
are so high that I honestly think that the average person just can't meet their standards. Even the Japanese can't meet their own standards a lot of times. And that can be very stressful. That's the one thing I've noticed about the Japanese. I think they kind of overstress themselves because they pursue perfection so much. And if you really, really get down to the nitty gritty and see how they do things, I'm not kidding you. I'm like, because you think, oh, I could do anything. I start like really looking at some of the stuff they do. I'm like, that's impossible. There's just no way that any human could keep up that pace or do it to that level of perfection. And they do. And it's unbelievable. I just think they're like a different species. It's unreal. And I find the beauty, or at least, I mean, I don't really even have to try, actually. It just comes naturally to me. I find the beauty in just all things and all people too. Like I love to see the beauty. Like a lot of people. I probably shouldn't even bring this up actually, but like I feel like everybody's always talking about racism this and racism that, and it's just kind of sickening actually after a while because look at a beautiful painting. A painting has so many different colors a lot of times, and there's so much beauty from it. And a rainbow would never be as beautiful as it is if it wasn't for all the colors on it. And I look at humans this way that, yeah, there's so many different colors and shapes and types and whatever. And, I find I actually I do observe a lot of cultures and people, just like the human body, I tend to observe too. And I just observe a lot about nature. And I found beauty. I think Korean people have a lot of beautiful things. People from Mexico have other beautiful things. People from Africa, even Canadians are kind of funny and quirky in different ways. Americans, the Japanese, the Chinese, like I like to look at all these different cultures, the people from India, and there's all these beautiful things that I see from different cultures. And then there's some things that are not so beautiful. And I look at all the different things that we weigh out, and I'm very impartial. Like I'm not even judging them. I'm just observing and observing what they really are good at and what maybe they're not good at. and even their biology, which is really fascinating. I won't go into it here, but even how biology affects behavior. And I literally have scientific evidence of that. And it all becomes very spiritual, but obviously, me on an individual level, I love purity and cleanliness. I've never seen anybody as clean as the Japanese. They are obsessively clean, and I absolutely love it. If I go down the street or something, like, you're not going to see any trash. And I'm talking about ghetto neighborhoods. When I say ghetto, I mean like poor neighborhoods. There's the people around here are not wealthy, and yet everything is so clean, so respectful. I don't see crime. It's unbelievable, right? It's really, really a thing of beauty, and the level of respect that people give each other, and then just their work ethic, and it's just beautiful. And everything they do, the way that they build their houses, the way they build their hydrogen machine, the way they farm their food. I've never seen people do what they do. And anyway, not to change the subject, but just because we were talking a little bit, I got on the Japanese there for a moment.
That's awesome.
And I'm grateful for them. I'm grateful for anything that any human or race or culture does for the betterment of humanity. And there's so many things, and some I can't even say because YouTube doesn't allow certain words, but there's certain things that the Japanese have invented, even a very popular medicine that starts with an I, and a V as in Victor, and I won't go into the rest of that, whatever the word is, but that was a Japanese invention, and it actually, they use hydrogen to enhance it. A lot of people don't know that. I mean, I could tell you the whole history about that medicine, but I used to talk about it, and my videos, I talked about it before it became popular, and those videos, I ended up getting flagged. I made these videos, and it became a big thing during the whole pandemic thing. So anyway, but there's so many beautiful things that they've done that I believe has benefited mankind. And people can also look at the negative things about what people have done, and nobody's perfect. So we humans, we're all imperfect. So that's just the way that it is. But I was going to bring up this book a little bit because this is part of how I developed some of my healing techniques. And it's called The Essene Gospel of Peace. And
Can I get that on Amazon?
yeah, you can find it anywhere. It's a very interesting story. I'm a very skeptical person because everybody promises you the world, and take this product or that product, and that's why it took me forever to figure out my protocol, because I spent a lot of time doing things that people were promoting that didn't work and ended up being a waste of money, really. And so when I first read this book, I was very skeptical. The only thing I'll say, and this is because we're talking about some spiritual stuff here, this gentleman basically claimed, can't really see it. I'm in front of a window, so it's kind of bright, but this guy, his name is Edmund Bordeaux Zakelli.
Okay.
But what I can tell you is, basically, he was translating. His father was a translator, and he became a translator and was translating supposedly books from the secret archives of the Vatican and all this kind of stuff. I was skeptical. I'm like, yeah, whatever, right? But I read it, and what shocked me is there's a tons of stories in here about Jesus, stories you've never heard. Nothing in the Bible almost. There's a few pieces that are in the Bible that were in here, actually. Some of them are literally identical verses as the Bible, but then they have more. So that it's almost like the Bible removes some stuff. This actually had the complete verse. I found that very interesting, including for prayer. Remember that prayer that says, "Our Father that art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done." That's not the whole, at the very end of the prayer, when you basically lead us not into temptation, deliver us from evil, blah, 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 blah. This one has that whole prayer and more. The second part starts, "Our Mother." So the Father and the Mother, and the difference between the spirit and the flesh. And Jesus talked about this with Nicodemus. And a lot of people don't know, I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but I have extensive knowledge in regards to spirituality, but I don't talk about it because people argue and fight about everything, especially belief systems. That's why they say don't talk about religion and politics. And all I really wanted for my viewers was for them the best. I wanted them to heal from medical problems, find their way out of their health issues. And I didn't want their beliefs to get in the way of that. Because if I say something that they don't agree with, they're like, "Oh, I don't even want to, do whatever this guy is saying that would be best." I just wanted people to heal and not suffer. That's like what I want. because I have had not only many visions, I mean, I've had a lot of deep meditation where I don't go into it in great detail, but I have had contact from what people would say light beings and angels and spirits with so much wisdom. And they've taught me so much. In fact, the majority of the wisdom that I carry came from them. Like, I didn't just come up with this stuff. This was given to me and it was shown to me, and the wisdom within it, and it's unbelievable. And I was so impressed with this book because Jesus was teaching people how to eat. You never heard of that in the Bible. And the way that he was suggesting to eat, I researched medical information and it really lined up, for the most part. Some of it's a little impossible to do what he was suggesting, but I created a lot of my techniques based on the wisdom that he was giving in the book. And although I'm skeptical, there's one thing that broke my skepticism. One thing and one thing alone, because how do I know this guy translated stuff from the archives of the Vatican? And we won't go into into detail here, but I will someday in the future. The very last page, and then this page, and then this one. So about 3 pages, maybe 3.5. Jesus shared something in those pages that the average person, anybody who's basically walking the planet, if they would read those pages, I would be willing to bet. I would actually probably be willing to make a pretty large bet, which is, I'm not even a gambler. I don't bet on things unless I feel pretty confident about it, that the average person would never understand what the heck he's talking. And he even said it in those pages. He specifically is saying, like, you're probably not going to understand this. But he explained it anyway. The only reason I understood what he wrote in those pages was because he was describing another world. He's not describing the world that we live in. It's this other world. You could call it like a spirit world. It's something that the information I've kept close, because I've had what they call like NDEs, which is near-death experiences. I have a whole story about that I don't go into detail. I think a lot of my viewers know that I OD'd. I don't know if you know that.
No, I didn't know that.
So I overdosed. I poisoned myself more than once. Sad to say, I mean, I'm not proud of it, but it is my story and what I went through. And I attempted to take my life multiple times. And because of continuous failures, I did one where I took almost 1,000 pills in one sitting, because I was like, I need to do a ridiculous amount to take this body out because I just won't die. That was my frustration. Now, without going into great detail, because it's a long story, I had very odd experiences, especially from ODing, which is one of the reasons I had heart problems. I wasn't born with them. I caused them myself. It's very, I'll just say I definitely regret it. I'm not proud of it. But what shocked me, and including my cardiologist, is that I found a way to repair it. And I had that problem for decades. My doctor said that it should have just completely killed me. It should have caused a heart attack in what I did to myself. He said it was a miracle that I survived. He said, you should have never survived. It was impossible. Actually, is what he said. He said, it's impossible. But it did cause issues with my heart. And I tried many forms of hydrogen also when I was trying to find my way, and it never fixed my heart. And I kind of gave up on the fact that it would fix my heart. I just wanted to be able to walk again and not be in so much pain. But when I did the HydroFix and it fixed my heart, I was like, what the heck? Like, what's so different about this machine? I mean, I had researched it and I knew a lot about it, but there was always more to learn. And that's when I realized it was something very special. And it's not a normal hydrogen machine. The Japanese have done something very, very, it's like a samurai sword. There is no better sword than a samurai sword. They're the best. And you can argue it all you want, but there is no sword like that. And the Japanese have done something special. So anyway, make a long story short, those 4 pages or 3.5 pages, what he described, I've been there. I have been to the other side more than once. I don't talk about it a lot. But what I saw is not what anybody else has ever described. So there's a lot of people out there who claim to have had near-death experiences or been to the other side. I've never heard one person describe it correctly. Not to say that they didn't have their experience, but when I had mine, I found it odd that nobody was saying the same thing that I saw until I read this book and saw what Jesus said.
So I want to say something about this.
Yeah, please.
Um, I think that as unique as we each are, when people have death experiences, their near-death experience is as unique as their own journey and development. So I think that there are some people that have quite extraordinary developments already. I think you probably are one. My feeling about you that you probably came in with quite a high development, even though you had all these intense struggles. It even says that you were searching out the intensity and moving to the next layers. This is just me riffing on my opinion.
Yeah.
So when you have these extraordinary experiences and you can relate and resonate so closely with what you read in the book about Jesus. I mean, I haven't read it. I'm going to. I'm fascinated. I think that's unique to you or a certain sort of level or bracket of development. So other people's NDEs are their own experience and their own where they are in their journey back home to God, we'll say.
I totally get what you're saying, and I do have a response to this. I'm gonna pause the video for a second, and then I want to finish this. This is gonna be good, but hold on one second because I have something. Hold on one second. Well, basically, guys, we were already done with the podcast, but we were just chatting a little bit offline. And I sometimes I find that sometimes you have the best conversations when you're at the end and we're just chatting, like you said, just riffing. And yeah, the only thing I'll say about your responses, which is obviously totally fine. Like I got no issues with that. One thing I've learned about the other side is that kind of like in scripture where it says there's many rooms, many mansions. There's many places on the other side, and there are, because I've been there, and there's a lot of different places over there, and there's a lot to learn. But there's this one specific place you actually, as far as I can't even say that I'm certain of this, but there's a specific place that you go to that you're almost like not allowed to go to. I could have never found this place. There was actually an angel that took my hand and took me there. And I won't go into all the details right now, but took me to this specific place. It took a while to arrive there. Once we got there, there was something else that I saw, which I won't go into. The reason I'm not going into detail is because I'm going to share this later. It has to be done later. It can't be. I'm following the guidance of, I don't know. I guess I can call them the angels. There's going to be a time to share this, and right now is not it yet, apparently. So that's why I'm being a little vague. But then there was another stage, and in that stage, which is interesting because what I saw is something that I've seen in some ancient India and ancient things from Asia. I've literally seen drawings of what I saw, and I'm thinking they must have been here too. You don't just draw this without having been there. You know what it looks like. A lot of the NDE stories that I've heard are very, what they describe as just the beginning. So they describe, they see their body, they see a light, or or these different types of stages. I've been through those stages. If you stay there long enough, the average person when they die, a lot of times they're out for 5 minutes. I think the longest I ever heard was like 20 something minutes. I was on the other side for like 4 hours. So what happened is the longer I was there, that there was a journey, and it's time to go deeper and deeper, and there was more and more and more, and things kept getting wackier and wackier, and I felt alone in it, which is another reason I never talked about it. So I didn't want to talk about it. People who are religious would get upset probably about the things I would say that I saw, and so I just didn't want to argue with anybody. And I don't like arguing with people, especially not to say that, like, when you're right about something, Like, I know that clean water is important. If somebody tries to argue with me, I remember there was a guy who was a toxicologist I used to see in the sauna that I would go to, and he would always um, try to argue with me about things like, oh, it's totally safe to eat, this or drink water from the tap because your body can handle certain levels of toxicity. He said, I'm a toxicologist, I would know. And I'm just like, okay, like, I'm not going to argue with you, dude. You believe what you want to believe, I'm okay with that. No judgment. You do what you want to do. But I felt pretty confident that I was right about the things that I've, done. When I read in this book, Jesus describing the other side
Amazing.
and describing exactly what I saw, it blew my mind. It was the first time in my life that I felt not alone
Yes.
in what so that's kind of where it started, having a little bit more faith in some of the techniques about how to heal the body. And then I did some of them. And then I had the craziest spiritual experience, which I just don't talk about it because I understand how there's so much judgment out there, right? So I just kind of was like, that's okay. I had my experience. I won't talk about it, but I have what I will say, I guess, for now, as you know, I've been to the other side many times, and they've taught me so much. I'm not talking like, a little book. I have a library inside of me that I've never spoken about. I have, just like we just talked about health for, I don't know how long we talked for, but, and I just gave you a very small piece of some of my knowledge to, that has helped the human body be able to be better. But I have so much information, and it is beautiful. And I apply it to my own life, right? So that's one thing. Like, I walk the walk. I walk this walk. It's part of the reason, again, that I choose to live in Japan now, because part of that walk is the water that comes from the earth, the mother earth, this water. And the water is something very special, very special. And nobody loves it like the Japanese. They love their hot springs. And if you ever research them, have you seen any of my hot spring videos yet?
No.
Oh, you haven't seen any of them yet? Oh my gosh. And
Have to-
so, yeah, I mean, to me, they're just, the science of it too. When you get in the water, it's the ultimate grounding. So it's the best grounding you can do. The minerals go right through your skin. So your body can absorb minerals from these healing waters. The temperatures, because there's a hot spring, and then there's a cold spring that comes from the earth too. It's beautiful. And you just can't get it anywhere like you do in Japan. And a lot of people, they call it onsen. And a lot of people don't know about that. And as I purified my blood and purified my body, things changed, even on a spiritual level.
Oh, yeah.
And you get the greater connection. There's even a spiritual part to hydrogen. A lot of the information that I get too, it's going to sound really wacky. Maybe you've heard of this book too, actually. The Hidden Messages in Water.
I love that book. Absolutely love that book. And that was one of the things that first caught me about you, Greg, when you talked about the spirituality of hydrogen.
Yeah.
Because what I've studied, we call it at the star level, the blue, we call it hydrogen 6.
Oh, funny.
At the galactic level, hydrogen 12. So I looked online recently. I don't know why we call it H6 and H12 just for short, but H is for hydrogen, obviously. And this is something that my teacher was downloaded with, is this core understanding about hydrogen and the blue color that goes with it. It's not a physical blue like the book that you just showed me, but it, resonates with physical color. As you saw on the other side, the colors are extraordinary. And they're not physical. They're energetic colors, they're electromagnetic colors, they're in another world. And
Yeah,
yeah. So the frequency of hydrogen, I feel, is totally core, totally, I mean, it's number one, right? In the atomic,
Yeah.
it's to get more godly than that. the God molecule, as you called it.
Yes, no, you're absolutely right. And
Yeah.
eventually it connects you, like you said, to source, which is where all this knowledge, I mean, there's a lot of wisdom there. And there's techniques. And part of those techniques, part of it is the purification of the body. It helps. Part of it is actually your heart. You know, boy, I got a long, I shouldn't say it, I don't know if I should go into it, but it was literally the whole reason that I attempted to take my life, because that started by the age of roughly 7 or 8 years old for me, which was very, it was an early onset, you know. So I got this really long story. Someday, you know, I'll,
I
huh?
want to hear it.
Yeah, someday when the timing's right, and that's what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for the right timing. And but yes, so water's magical. And you know who wrote this book, right?
Yes, I do. I have it in my bookshelf, Emoto.
A
Yeah.
Japanese.
Japanese. Yeah. Didn't he die recently?
Yeah. And I wish I could have shared some things with him that I know that he doesn't know. And I know this is not to toot my own horn, but I say this because it's important, and I don't know how many people are going to hear it because we're on a very small channel right now. We're not on a larger platform. That's part of the thing. I'm going to release. I have a massive amount of information that I will only release on a very large platform, because the first time that it's released, that's what I was shown. It has to be done on a very large platform the first time around. And the information is, the world's never heard it, and there's tons of it. I mean, tons of it. When you go to the other side, it was one of the interesting things. You're not even allowed in. So just so you know, there's literally like there is an angel that guards a gate. There's like a door.
Absolutely. Heaven has standards too.
Yes, and they look at your heart. By the way, when you get there, your heart is naked. There's a few things that I can share. I can't share all this stuff. I'll share a little bit. And so they can literally like measure or weigh your heart before they let you in.
The weighing of the heart. You know about that in Egypt?
Yep.
Yeah.
I heard about it recently, and it's interesting because I experienced it obviously many years ago. And when I saw it, it all makes sense to me because, you know, it just makes sense now to me. And so they look at your heart, and when you're taken in and then you travel, there's a path that's taken. I won't go into the detail of how they do it and everything, but there is a lot of details to share. And then you go to, there's like stages, and eventually there's another place that you get to, and you have to also be funny because they don't weigh your heart the same way on that next one. It's almost like they know already who you are. But anyway, eventually you go through another door. There's like these different rooms and doors. And when you get to this very interesting stage, it was the one that I was the most fascinated with. And that's exactly the one that Jesus described. It was the deeper, the deepest of the deepest places that you can go to. And all I'll say is that the information that was in there was like literally like the archives of all of creation. It was everything. Everything was there, and it was massive, extremely big. But the reason that I'm bringing that up is because there's even information there, which I was going to maybe share on some other platforms, even stuff about like the pyramids of all things. I'm not even into the pyramids. I don't research them. I know everybody talks about them and fascinating. They're fascinating, but when I saw what they're actually made for, I'll tell you one thing, everybody's wrong. Like all the different theories that people have come up with and what they say those things are for, they don't actually know. Everybody's been guessing. And I have not only that information, which I already know is very big and important for humanity to know. Actually, it's very important for them to know these things. There's so much information that I have that's important for humanity to know. Right now, I've been chewing off this thing. We're just trying to help people with their health issues. This is small potatoes to the big picture of what we're supposed to do and the purpose of humanity. This
Right.
is just a thing.
Right.
But I've done that because you have to start at the beginning for humans.
Yes.
And humans need to start first. It's very sad because it's the corruption of man that created the disease that we're seeing with humans. This is why it's so beautiful. I don't want to say his name almost. I'll just say his initials. Everybody will probably know who he is, but I'll say RF, and then I won't say his last initial. But he was a guy in politics.
Okay.
You know, he's JFK's relative. How about if I say that?
Yeah.
But he's looking into what's causing all these health issues with humans. You know, in America, the numbers are out of control. And I've wanted to help people, yes, for overcoming their suffering, to overcome these, because medical problems cause suffering. Clearly, I mean,
Yeah.
for a lot of people,
Absolutely.
it's painful and it's expensive, and it takes away from your quality of life. And for me, one of the most important things in life is joy and happiness. But you have to understand what leads to joy and happiness. And I know for a fact, and maybe you might disagree, but this is what I feel very strongly is, in order for you to achieve your greatest happiness, your body, you have to be in good health. You can't be happy if you're miserable physically. If you if you're in constant pain or sick, or if you've ever had a cold the last 2 weeks, you're miserable. You're not happy when you're, it's just, no, it's not happening. So I wanted to start. That was, you know, it's funny that it's almost like, I feel like you almost like you're reading my heart, is what I kind of felt like. You see what's really in my heart, and you see what I'm about. At least that's what I got from your feedback, you
Oh
know.
yeah.
And I'm glad that you can see it. You know, I'm not trying to hide my heart. I'm happy for people to see it, because I'm not ashamed of what's in my heart. I may be ashamed of things that I've done, you know, as far as trying to destroy this body and taking things, trying to hurt myself. I am sad that I did that. I mean, you know, but at some point I have to forgive myself, and I have to try to help others, and with the knowledge that I've gained from my difficulties, and that's what I do. You know, that's what I've tried to do. My channel's clearly small. Um, there is no funding. You know, people contact me all the time and say, "Hey, I'll work on your channel if you pay me this." I'm like, I do everything for free. We're just using an old iPhone. If you saw my old iPhone that I'm using for this, it's an old, nothing fancy, you know. Um, but it was just for helping people trying to improve their body and purify their temple. And then in time, I wanted to share, because instead of me telling people about the other side and what's there, and what the truth is, that's where things get tricky, right? Because people are like, hey, you get into religion and politics, and I'm not talking religion, but you know how that's how people take it. People get weird, and so I didn't want that. But what I would like to do at some point in the future, and I'm waiting to do this, is share techniques that I discovered by accident, so that people can eventually go there without, so that people don't have to tell you what the truth is. You can see it for yourself, and you can make up your own mind. That's ultimately what, you know, what I really want for people is, I want them to see it for themselves. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want people telling you what God is or what to believe. You want to see it for yourself, and then, you know, you can witness it for yourself. And that's something that is part of the process of what I'm working towards. This whole thing with health and just helping people, this is just the tip of the iceberg. This is a very small piece of what I really want to do, but it's taken up so much of the time, and I apply these things into my life. So I'm walking the path even if I don't talk about it. So I do go and meditate in the springs every day. You know, I do make my smoothies and drink my hydrogen and inhale my hydrogen, and overcome deficiencies, and these different things. I live the path, and I'm not perfect. I break some of my rules sometimes and stuff like that, but I do have the best of intentions in my heart, because I've been shown, you know, I've been shown how, we know how short life is. And a lot of people live as if they're never going to die. You know, they live that way. But, you know, the wisdom that's on the other side is so far beyond anything in this world. It's not even close. And all the things that I've been shown, I see very clearly, you know, the things of this world. That's the reason that I don't really have like I don't have desires and attachments to have super cool things, like, I don't need a Ferrari, I don't need fancy watches and houses and massive amounts of money because I already see what's coming. And probably the most valuable thing we really tend to have in this world is our health, you know. And that's why I'm actually grateful that there are machines out there that will clean our water because we've messed up the water so much. The water's so polluted. Thank God that there is a technique that can clean your water that's only about 500 and something or $600. Thank God it's not $6,000 or $60,000. So
Exactly.
it's reachable. And the same thing goes for the Hydrofix, something that's special that is within reach. It's not $25,000 or, and so I was just so grateful. And same thing for the Purium product. When a company does something that they do from the heart and it's really pure, and yes, maybe it costs more than some other product, but it's because they put in that extra effort. You know what I mean? And so all of it's about the purity for the temple. And then in time, I will share more about some of these information about the other side that I think unfortunately or maybe fortunately is going to cause it's going to disrupt the world of, I don't want to say the world of medicine because that's a whole other thing, but the world of spirituality. I think that there's going to be a little disruption because I think some people will have a difficult time with some of it. I think some people will be totally fine with it, but some people are really married to their ideas, and so.
Great. At a certain point you're already being guided in this. Doesn't matter. The
Mm,
people that can hear it will hear it. Those who have eyes to see, let them see, and ears to hear, and they will. They will find it. The people that need to find it and hear it will. And the rest, they're just, what can you say?
well, the other thing too, and I agree with you. The other thing is also I have to be cautious about some of the information because I don't want it to be misused. Um,
Yeah.
I don't want this information to be misused or confused either.
Yep. Yep.
I mean, that happens a lot, even in scripture. Like, here's a famous quote from Jesus. He says, "Many false prophets will come bearing my name." I mean, and we see a lot of people out there who, I don't even want to say this guy's name, I would, but he's very famous. I believe he owned some huge church in, I think it was Florida, if I remember correctly. I don't remember, but during some natural disaster, he wouldn't let anybody in because he just had the carpets cleaned or something. I'm like, are you
Yeah.
are you not in it for the people, brother? Like, so I want
Yeah.
to. All I'm saying is that,
Well, what I really love is that you're so attuned to the timings because I feel like the guidance that we're getting is so, I mean, it's just so intelligent. There's no parallel for the intelligence that's orchestrating the whole world, that built this, that built the world. I mean,
yeah,
and I feel like you're in such an amazing place to honor that guidance and to be very cautious with it. I get that because who knows what crazy people are going to do what with it.
yeah,
Some of it we can't control, but when it gives you the green light and it sounds like you're like ready to go when it says go and
yeah,
the next healing level. As this hydrogen thing has been amazing, whatever's building up in you is so the energetics around it are like going through
well,
the
I can't believe that you can, like, that you're really picking up on it because I don't talk about it really a lot. But you're obviously, I mean, you're telling me something that I'm
yeah,
kind of, I'm surprised that I don't know how you picked up on it actually,
yeah.
but
I love the same thing. I have the same, I mean, I wish I were as good in my body as you are. That's where we're really different. I have let myself down or, I'm in a different generation kind of, but it doesn't matter. You can't really compare. We're each on these journeys that are so unique. So when I'm feeling you're extraordinary, I mean, you're blowing me away with the purity of your heart and your mission and your willingness. and your daily walking the walk. I mean, it's so exciting. And I can't wait to support you in any way I can. Really, in any way I can, Greg.
Well,
It's a,
thank you. You know, if anybody's actually listening, we're not, I hit record anymore actually, but if I did, if anybody's listening, I mean, the big goal, if anybody wants to reach out to like these large podcasts, because that's actually what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for a very big platform.
Yep.
Really release the information that has been basically given to me. And there's a lot. There's a lot. And I think it's going to be very important. In fact, it's so much so I even have like a vision that I was about a device. I want to build a device that I believe it'll do a lot of things, but this particular device will facilitate the ability for people to be able to go to the other side, so they can actually, you know, without dying, and they can see a whole other world that they don't even know exists. Humans are.
I want to be the first person in line for that. I'll be the guinea pig, for real.
And if I explain to you the science and everything, it's unbelievable, because I didn't even. There's just no way I could figure out this stuff on my own. I'm sure everybody would. It's unbelievable. But what I can tell you is that, you know, humans, there's a lot of stuff that I have, but I'll share just a little bit. We're only living half of what we actually are. There's two parts. There's like two worlds. Jesus said it really good when he spoke to Nicodemus. He said, that which is of the flesh is flesh, which the Buddhists call the ego, you know, this flesh world, and this world that we live in. We came from the earth, you know, our mother, because the earth is our mother. You know, the body, as the scripture says, we were risen of the earth. We were born of her. But the spirit is a whole other thing. And Jesus talked about that too. He said, what is of the flesh is flesh, what is of the spirit is spirit. There's these two things. And the spirit world is a whole other world. And it's not to judge people, but I feel quite confident that the average person, or well over 99% of people, have never really seen it in its completeness. They don't know what it takes to access it. Like I said, there is information. Some of the information is in ancient books. So there are some people who have achieved it. Clearly Jesus has been there, because when he wrote about it, I'm like, yeah, I know it's right because I've seen it. And it's not, you know, so I know it's real. I know people have been there. Even these paintings, you couldn't have drawn it unless you'd been there. There's just no way. And it's unbelievable, but I believe it's a lost knowledge. So I believe that it's something that we did used to know, and we got lost along the way. And it's about to happen and reawaken again. And it was part of the reason, this is always hard for me to share, but it might be necessary, that it's all the reason that when I was 7 or 8 years old, I became very suicidal. I was so, I came from a world, because going to the other side, you actually get to see your soul, your spirit. You get to see why you chose to come to Earth. I mean, all these questions I had were answered. Questions that nobody could answer. No priest, nobody could answer the questions I had. Like nobody. It was very frustrating. And those questions they were answered. But once I saw very clearly why I came here, and there's a lot of work still to do, for me. There's more that I must do, and that's all I want to do. All I want to do is fulfill what my spirit and what God wants me to do. That's all I want. I don't have desires for, like I said, fancy cars and fancy stuff. Like, I don't have any of those desires. They will never bring me joy and happiness. They just won't. It's nice to have a cake. Maybe it's cool to drive a Ferrari, but it doesn't fill my soul. It doesn't fill my soul the way that when humans love each other and do kind things for each other. There's just nothing like that in the world, or even soaking in a spring, these hot springs. It's like you feel like your mother is hugging you and you're like a child. It's so magical. And those are the things that you can't really put a monetary value on. A dollar value are the things that are priceless. that you just, there is no amount of money that could give you those type of feelings. And so, yeah, so, those are the things that are important to me. And as a child, I came from a place that I didn't remember, because as a child, you don't remember. It was like amnesia. And there's an emptiness inside, and there's more to the story, but I'll leave it at that for now. We'll see. Hey, who maybe people enjoy this conversation more than the first one.
Everything makes so much sense that you're saying to me. So much sense. And I don't know, it just it just makes me feel not alone to hear you. And
You know,
I just love it.
I was gonna say one of the things that I've been shown a lot of things, and one of them was I know the hearts of man. I know that people feel an emptiness. I know that feel like something's missing. I know that people feel like there's got to be more than this, and I can answer and tell you there is for sure, because I
I
see.
know that. Yeah.
I used to have my doubts because I'm such a skeptic, but experiencing it for myself, it's like not fair, because I know that because I've been shown the hearts of man, I know that the average person never gets to see what I've seen. So it's not fair. And I know that. I'm so grateful that I've been able to see and experience much of what I've been able to see and experience. But I know that it's coming for humanity,
I do too.
and it is coming. And I never thought that I would be a part of that. I can tell you, I won't go into detail, but I can tell you that the other side has shown me and said some things to me that even it's a pill that's been difficult for me to swallow. But I have to continue to do my heart's desire and what's in my heart, because it's the only thing that makes me feel fulfilled and full.
Right? Absolutely.
There's just nothing more important than that work. And unfortunately, I had to go through a lot of suffering to get there. It was all part of the process. As much as I hated it, as spirits on the other side showed me and explained to me, it was necessary, as they would say. It was necessary, and I was so upset about it at first, until they showed me the wisdom behind the difficulties of my path, and that changed a lot of things and my perspective on life, and how life is really dictated by the other side. You make choices on the other side, and you come here and you forget. You're in a state of amnesia.
Yes, yes,
But we will be awakened again, and
yes.
like born again, but you'll be awakened again. You were once blind and now you can see, type of thing. And working towards that. And I really hope that any audience that's watching this who might have a connection or a friend or somewhere that would lead to, again, a large platform, I already make a promise or a pledge that I will release this information, but it has to be at the right place at the right time. And that's unfortunate.
It will bring it to you. It will bring that person, probably not me. I'm not bigly connected. I have a lot of friends, but not on huge world platforms. But it will come, and maybe it'll come, I mean, the Lex Friedman, are you familiar with Lex Friedman?
Yeah.
Amazing platform for you. I mean, that guy's phenomenal.
I would totally sit down. There's, even when I listen to those podcasts, it's always hard for me, because I'm like, oh, if they only knew this, or if they only knew that.
Right?
And you just can't know. It's not to judge anybody, but it's like you can't know unless you've been there, or
Yeah.
a lot of those certain things unless you've gone through them yourself. Life is like that. It's hard to know until you've personally lived it or been in someone's shoes.
So you bear a certain burden, I think, of loneliness, what I call spiritual loneliness, because you know things that really maybe nobody else knows right now. So it's its own kind of heaviness that you're carrying. Um, and there's nothing you can do about that, really, you know, until more of us wake up, and then you'll feel a little less lonely.
Yes. The fact that you're bringing this up, I'm going to share something. I will share one thing that I wasn't going to originally share. Let me see here. When I was a child, the whole reason for the suffering that happened was because there was an opportunity that came to me from, you can call it a being, that basically in your heart, there is something that connects us all. All of humanity is one. Okay, we're all connected. The thing is that we kind of do it subconsciously as a protective mechanism. There's a part of us that we actually shut off because it'd be too painful. And if it's too painful, you can't even live. You know what I mean? It can be detrimental to you and your health if you experience too much pain, you know? And so apparently this is what I did, and it was presented to me as a child. I was given an opportunity to open these places within me that I didn't really understand as a child, and I didn't even know existed. When they opened, it connected me to humanity. This is why I've seen the hearts of men. I know so much about people that they don't even know about themselves. And it sounds pretty arrogant to say that, but it's the truth. And it helped me understand humans. It helped me understand people to a certain level. The problem is that with that came their pain too.
Yeah.
And that was the pain that was just too much for me to handle as a child. And even now, it's like I literally would start crying because it was so heavy and it broke me. Can't even talk. But yeah, it was really tough. And that's why I felt like I couldn't go on, when I was a kid. And but it led me to trying to find my way out. And it wasn't just for me. I always knew somehow that if I could find my way out, it would help others. It was always about them. And in time, I found out that I'd volunteered for this, which I didn't know as a kid. I didn't know anything about this. It was a very confusing time. So yeah, and then eventually the medical problems too, which have helped a lot of people, which is why I've done my channel. It's just been a really, really hard road, but I've been blessed after all that. I'm very grateful for where I am now, but I always feel like I want to finish the job. I want to finish what I started, because if you don't, the suffering would have been for nothing for me. I have a high standard for myself, and I've always looked for, since I was little, I always looked for happiness. I wanted joy. I wanted to be happy. Life was so hard, so much unhappiness. And I remember Spirit once told me, I'll share one beautiful thing. They shared so much beauty with me. I mean, like I said, I got libraries in me. But one of the things they said, look, you can never truly be happy, while your brothers and your sisters are suffering. Like, I'm sorry to tell you that, but you're looking for happiness and joy, and it can't just be you. You can't just think of you. You can't just have, again, a fancy car, a fancy house, lots of money. It's like, it'll never bring you joy. And it showed it to me. Like, the way that spirits communicate is like downloads and visions, and it's massive amounts of information in 1 second.
Yeah.
And it showed me the truth. And when I realized that, it was painful, because I knew that my happiness and joy is actually dependent on the joy of others, and vice versa. That's why that's why the wise words of like Jesus in the Bible, when he says, love your neighbor as yourself, is the secret to joy and happiness is love and kind and everything that comes from love. I mean, love is a little vague, but when I say love, is like, if you make a hydrogen machine, do it with love. Make the best one you can. When you make a house, make a non-toxic house that's built really strong and that is safe. When you grow food, grow the cleanest food with no chemicals. Like, everything should be from love to the highest standard. And that's what I've seen in the Japanese. That's why I've been so amazed by them. The way that they do their farming, the way that they love the water and these springs, the way they build their homes, like the way they do things is unbelievable. They're not perfect people, but I've never seen anything like it. And and I love that, because there's a respect for others, for fellow. I call them brothers and sisters because I believe we were all born of the earth and we're all going to return to it.
Yeah.
And our spirits were all born of, they say, the Father, and we're all going to return to him someday too. And anyway, so yeah, I probably shared too much, but
For me, no. For me, not at all. I feel so gifted. Thank you. Thank you.
thank you for. And I guess I'll stop recording if we are recording. I'm not even sure if I hit record anymore. But let's see. So anyway, if anybody watched, thanks for watching. Okay, I'm gonna see if I can figure this out too. We've never done this before. Yeah, we did. We were recording.